Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of GenAI Vlog. So the past couple of episodes, we've been introducing the basic idea of Anthropic Claude API client, as well as the SDKs. So we talked about basic invocation, basic API calls, such as Hello World, right? Hello Claude. And then we also talk about tool calling, right? Get weather, things like that. And then how it's a little caveat and non-trivial to put together a list of conversation to stitch the tools together. So in previous episode, we talked about the caveat of what if you have multiple tools that's customly defined, right? These are just custom Python functions. Then how do you uh, use these functions as tool? And then how do you stitch the conversation together inside this while loop? And as a reminder, this is just a while loop for one invocation, right? So all of this is non-trivial. Take a little bit of a thought to put this together. Now, here comes another problem, right? Previous episode, we talked about this chatbot interaction function and how this is one giant API call to get some data back from a database, right? Let's refresh our memory. For example, you can have a small database that's customer information. You can have a small database that's orders. For the sake of this video, these are just dictionaries that are hard-coded in Python. But in real world, this will probably be some sort of API key, right? In terms of localhost API or in terms of real API, REST API. There's a client side, there's a server side. If you want to touch model context protocol, you have to work with client side and server side, right? And then on the server side, maybe there's an access, an API key of some sort to some sort of database, right? Dynamo database, Oracle database, NoSQL, things like that. So it allows you to basically get data, upload data, delete data, things like that. So you can kind of think about this as an endpoint to allow you to go into the database to get something back. So customer, maybe that's a database, you're getting piece of information back according to, say, a customer ID. Or maybe you want to get some order information back according to, say, order, right? So that's the idea of the tools that we talked about before. And then how it works is you turn the name of the function into an actual tool calling, get the response back. You append it here in the body of the message, and then you get the response to be displayed on the actual screen. So we had an example here that says, can you tell me the email address for customer C1, right? It went through a whole list of steps to get the tools, get the response back from running the tool, and then it finally got it, right? Oh yeah, the customer John Doe email is whatever, right? Here's the problem. The problem is this is just a giant string, right? This is just a giant string. It is extremely annoying to then have to parse it out and get the email out of this giant string, right? And then you're like, oh crap, how do I do that? Do I use colon? Do I use this at symbol? Do I use .com as a symbol? Or regex pattern to extract and isolate the string? What if I want to get the name out of this response, right? It's John Doe. Oh, crap, how do I do it? Do I use parentheses? What if John Doe is an Asian name that doesn't really work with the schema? What if there's a special symbol, some French characters or Latin-based characters? There are symbols on top of it. Is that an actual symbol or is that like a quotation mark of some sort, right? So there's all these weird things and a caveat situation that you have to take care of downstream in the code, and your post-processing script is going to be extremely long and annoying. So that raises the question, how do we control the schema of the output and to make it structured? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today in this episode is to control the output of the response so that it follows certain schema. So we know exactly what's coming out of this input. So we know exactly what's coming out of response of the LLM call. So let's go to the notebook for today. We're going to be installing Pydantic email that gives us a package to create and control structure output, right? So again, the very powerful combination if you have these two packages together, Anthropic and Pydantic. Let's get our key in there. Let's get our client done. Here is the schema. For example, Arthur. Arthur is essentially inherited from base model, and the base model is coming from Pydantic. So we import base model from Pydantic, and that allows us to define this class object. So author, once again, is inherited from base model. And then what we want is name, email. That is going to be exactly what is associated with author. No more, no less. And the data type here, we also imported from Pydantic. We have email string and we have field, right? So email string obviously deal with the special characters in the email. Field is just a normal type hints from Pydantic. Same thing goes with notes, right? Notes probably has note, author, text, priority, whether it was a public, things like that. And then you can define whatever you want, right? These are just custom class object in your Python environment, right? And you can do whatever you want here, right? You can have John Doe down here if you want, right? Apple Orange down here if you want, right? You get the idea. So these are custom Python class object that the engineers has full control of. So you are entitled, you have full right of what the key value pair is inside of the response, and this creates structured output. Once we agreed upon this, downstream in the code, it makes your life much easier. So let's take a look at the rest of this example. Once you have the output defined, you are good to go, right? Register tools, that's same as what we talked about before, right? The schema of the tools, things like that. And then you want to save the node, so that actually does the tool calling. And this process helper function wrap the tool together to actually invoke it, return some sort of response back by actually call this function save nodes, right? And then it generates some sort of response that's just a helper function, right? So with all that being defined, then we can check out how to run this interaction. And again, this is just one interaction, right? We're not done yet, right? It's just one interaction. We're throwing in one message, and that's it, right? The goal here is to kind of see how this LLM runs the tools and creates output that basically follows the rules that we give it. So let's go ahead and run it. Here, can you save a private node with the following details? Remember to buy milk and eggs. Author is John Doe. That's his email, whatever priority is for, right? This is kind of like a Jira board ticket, right? You can very simply take care of that. And then this is a framework to do that, right? So it says, hey, that's information. That's what the user says. Let's send that to the LLM. LLM think about it, say, yeah, I need to save the private node, right? That is an actual tool calling. So let's go down here, yada, yada, yada. All these just input of the tool. The name is save node, right? The type is tool usage. So this line tells us that the LLM realized that it needs to run the tool. It hasn't run it yet, but it realized that a tool is required. And the name of the tool is save node, and all this crap is just the input. Great. Now let's go here. It execute the tool, right? It use the tool, and then the input is this, and then it's saved correctly, and then saved successfully, and then here's the tool information. But notice that inside of this line in the middle, it's still just a big string, right? This is just a big string. It's still inside of a giant paragraph. So that's a little bit of annoying, right? That's a little bit of annoying. So let's take a look at the final response. Node has been saved successfully, and then it printed out. And once it printed out, you see that now this follows the schema. In order to demonstrate the schema, let's save this as a response. So response back, let's say this is a structure. We run the same thing, and then you see exactly what I just said. Now in the end, let's print out the final response to see what's going on. So you see here the final response is being returned in the end of this function. So let's grab the output and let's print it out here, and let's see what we got. And then if you want to print it out, you see that it follows the scheme. And since this is always controlled, You can then extract it according to key value pair. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like.